Maybe it's not all about being caffeinated, or maybe it's not all about the coffee or tea, but instead it's the action of holding something warm in our hands and having that moment that makes us feel safe and comforted. The fact that we've allowed ourselves to have that warm drink to keep us going throughout the day. Maybe it's subconscious that it's not all about the coffee, but the action, the experience. Yep, if your paints don't look like this, then you don't use them enough. Or you're just an artist that actually takes care of their paints and keeps on top of their condition. Meanwhile, I just use and close and use and close. So for this video, it's going to be a little different, and I'm going to try and do a tutorial kind of thing, so kind of take you through my process. So the first thing I do with a landscape is I add a thin base layer of the prominent background colours, such as the sky and the ground. For the sky, I use a light yellow and blue base, for the ground a yellow ochre, and obviously this is specific to this piece, but depending on the reference it will change. For the second layer, I start adding in the clouds into the sky, and when I'm doing landscapes I usually do start with the sky because that's obviously in the background, and so it's easier to add the foreground on top. The tripod fell. In this reference, the clouds are pretty light and fair, so I don't have to do too much work to them before adding the ground. Now that the clouds have been placed, I paint across where the ground starts, trying to follow how the reference is, which is not completely straight, and that gives it a lot more of a natural appearance. And so everything's kind of just mapped out, and once everything is mapped out, that's when I can start going in with the midtones and the darker values and start layering up the piece. Basically here I'm just trying to replicate the midtones in the grass. When I'm painting, I always start from light to dark, and so now that I'm on the midtones, I'm adding in more of those darker values. It does look very blotchy, but that's okay because grass and nature grows freely, so at this stage it doesn't matter too much. It's got like seriously dark, and it's not even 1:30 in the afternoon yet, so we just have to deal with this lighting now. And yet again I should mention how I should get a lighting kit. I always forget. So I now lay it up on top of the underlying midtones using the reference as my guideline. And since everything is mapped out, everything's laid down, it's really time to start refining, adding those colours, using the reference as your guideline and building on that. As we can see from our reference, the darkest values are the ones further from the skyline and closest to us, and the grass closest to the skyline and the furthest from us is the brightest, and this gives the impression of a sunset, as the remaining sunlight where the grass is closer to it is still lit, whereas the sunlight that doesn't reach the grass in the foreground is darker and shadowed. And now we are adding in the final layers. So these are the remaining elements such as the trees, bushes, a house, a gate, animals, etc. Whatever your reference has, this is the point where to add those elements in. At this point, you can adjust colours and tones or start adding small details, working your way from the most distant place in your piece all the way to the foreground of your piece. Once you're happy with your final layer and have finished adjusting or adding your shadows and values, it's time for the details, aka the final touches. And that is what you're seeing me adding now. So these are like, you know, small individual grass blades, or maybe the sparkle in a cow's eye, or highlights on a gate or something like that. So here we are just adding in small individual grass blades to give the effect of a full grassy field. And by adding in these small little white highlights, I'm giving the impression of flowers. I'm now adding in a tree, and although you may be thinking, but I thought you said you had to add them earlier. But because they're going like in front of the bushes and stuff, that's why I'm adding them in now, so that they are not behind them but in front of them. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. But I mean, who am I kidding? It doesn't even matter. You can paint however the heck you want to. This is just like a little breakdown of my personal process. So yeah, there's no rules. Up comes the washi tape. This is always such a magical process. Those crisp lines really complete a piece. It really pulls it together, but not as much as the magic of gold. I recommend you all add gold. You should add gold to your piece. That's what will really finally top it off. This is the cherry on top. This is the magic of the piece. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I thought I'd talk about my process a little bit, as it's something that I personally enjoy seeing from other artists. So thank you. Please like and subscribe to help build this channel up. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. Oh, it's 1:34 a.m. I really appreciate all of you guys, and until next time, bye.